Hey, listeners, and welcome to the You Are Epic podcast. This is where we honour the people who've helped build not just our industry, but our communities. I'm Angela Hucker, and I am so glad that you're here. So, I'm taking the time to sit down with people who've been in construction for years, people who've been through the ups, the downs, and everything in between. You're going to hear real stories of resilience, growth, and moments that shaped who they are. This podcast is for those that want to learn more from people who've been walking this path for some time, and they're helping to lift up others and quietly making a difference along the way. It's also to show you that your journey matters and your voice matters. And in case you've forgotten, you are epic. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Janet Lum, a cost and commercial advisory expert with over 25 years of guiding major construction projects from concept to completion. As an associate director at WT and a member of the Australian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, Janet has worked across sectors from education and commercial to health and high performance sport, delivering strategic insights on projects ranging from 10 million to $1 billion. She brings precision, foresight, and deep industry knowledge to every stage of the project lifecycle. So thank you so much for joining us, Janet. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Angela. Absolute honor to be invited and part of this great initiative.
And I know you're calling in from the other side of the world in Paris at the moment, so I appreciate you taking the time and giving me an hour to have this conversation.
Oh, pleasure, absolute pleasure.
So thank you. So one thing I always love to ask my guests, because am a very curious person, when people have been in this industry so long, I like to go to the beginning and ask, how did you get started?
Oh, long story, tracing back many years. I, as you finish HSC, a lot of us don't know what we want to do. We're still quite young, and I wasn't really exposed to construction industry at all. I knew I loved maths, and I started looking into what options I had once I got my ATAR. I did actually put down civil engineering because of the maths component. And a family member who happened to be in the construction industry and said, don't consider engineering. Why don't you consider quantity surveying? And I thought, never heard of that. So I did some research, went to the university, spoke to lecturers to find out more. Next minute after I walked out of that, they said, oh, we've got a few positions we're looking for cadets. Would you be interested? And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And soon before you know it, I was going for interviews with several firms and then signed up, and I've been in the industry since.
Wow, there you go. That's great. And you've
Hmm.
worked in a lot of the sectors as well. So what's kind of some of the most notable parts that you've worked on?
Oh, I think when I first started, we're very fortunate. Our company is quite a large international firm. We have offices all around the world, from Dubai to London, Asia, everywhere, and US as well. So we weren't as big then, but sizable enough that we got a lot of big projects. So I remember being a cadet, helping, doing all the little jobs and tasks for Governor Philip Tower, the Sydney Harbour Casino, the Olympic Stadium when we won the Olympics
Oh
in
yeah, wow.
2000. Gosh, I just remembered all the amazing projects and Luna Park, the whole transformation of Luna Park. It was so exciting. We worked on a lot of big projects. So that kept me going. And I never even thought about looking back and stopping it all because the projects were so big and exciting, even though
Mm,
my role was quite small, but I felt part of it. And it's the satisfaction and the reward you get to being part of such incredible projects that's been completed. And when you walk around and drive around
mm.
the city, you recognize this, that I was part of that, a bit small. And that's the great thing about being in the industry. A lot of not just females, just anyone who wants to be in the industry. They're like, wonder what it's like. Is it hard work thing? Yes, in any career, it is hard work, or it does require hard work if you want to succeed. But the reward is so amazing when you finish a project. It has, as you know, Angela, with construction, it has its highs and lows,
Oh yeah.
deadlines and everything. But when you
Yes.
get to the end of it, it's very rewarding.
So when you started out as a cadet and, like if we go back Gosh, 25 years ago for the Sydney Olympics, far out. That's gone quick, hasn't it? But you think about as a cadet and starting out as a female in this industry, because 25 years ago is significantly different to how it is now. What kind of barriers did you face at that point?
Mm, a few, and I'm trying to remember most of the. I think the first one is, and great that my company is very progressive, but at the time, it's not just the company itself. I think it was the whole industry. Very
Mm,
few female, as you mentioned, is industry, and they didn't know how to accommodate or cater for women. The only female there were usually the people, the ladies in admin, and they were all ladies. So in the actual technical engineering room, or there are no female, and often you have meetings and you're the only one there. And that was hard being a female, a young female.
mm.
And also in the office, we weren't allowed to wear pants. It was that old fashioned. And that was
Really?
surprising. Yes, I think it
Oh, it
was very
was
old fashioned.
skirts only.
Skirts only. And being the person that I am, I thought, well, I want to go on a site, construction site. So I didn't get to go to construction site perhaps until after my second year, I believe, from memory as a cadet. And the opportunity came up, I jumped at it and I said, there is no way I'm going to wear a skirt. So I then wore pants. I said, let's just see how it goes. So I wore pants into work. No one said anything. So I thought, great. I think it was just something that they're not used to having females. So therefore I did it. And from there on, I just wore pants for the next 10 years. And I don't want it to be about outfits, but it was just my own sign of being saying, I am in industry. And that's very minor, but that was just symbolism for me. I think the other parts were being on a construction site where there were no female, being on a construction site where all the toolboxes had plastered women, bare-breasted and unclothed, like literally all through the construction side, and being like a young 19, 20-year old. It was quite overwhelming. But I said, no, this is going to make me tougher. I would just look away and not let that stop my intent and wanting to be in the industry. So, yeah, I overlooked all those. I think that was some of the few. And then mostly being the only female in a meeting room.
And so, what kind of, I mean, particularly in the role that you're in with quantity surveying, because that can be, you're talking about costs, which is where the money is, which is where it can get quite emotional at times.
Yes, yes.
What kind of situations were you faced with and how did you navigate that?
Yes. I think like in anything, and a lot of people mention to succeed, you have to go through failures and learning to accept those failures and learning to accept you're only human is the hardest part, being not just in the industry, but any industry and any career. And when I start reading more about books about entrepreneurs and successful women and men in any industry, I realized that mistakes and failures are all part of learning. And I think that was the hardest challenge for me. Obviously, I'm not perfect and I have made some mistakes along the way. And it took me some time to sort of get over those. It also crushed my confidence and sort of questioning myself whether I should consider continuing in the industry. And I thought, no, I don't think it's specific to it in the industry itself. I think it's part of my learning process. Even if I change industry, it won't change how I feel or what I've learned or what I've done. I've got to capture, capitalize on that and take from that and how to get better. And that took me a number of years, but I think hopefully I'm there now and building back my confidence. But I really didn't have anyone to sort of help me through that because I internalized everything and I went back into my shell,
Mm.
and my development was held back quite a lot because of that. And I didn't want to share it with anyone at all. And I think it's very important. Anyone in any career, female or male, needs to move on and learn from that and not being very hard on yourself.
Mm. And the way, and a lot of people are like that, like they do that internalizing, and like I say, they kind of get in their head and they overanalyze everything and think about this and that and whatnot. And I've certainly done that in my time as well. And then I've had to learn how to reframe it to go, what is this? I call it now an opportunity. It's not a failing,
Mm,
it's an opportunity. So
mm,
what's the opportunity here for me to grow as a person? Because, and what can I learn from this experience to make me a better person as well? So if you think back
exactly.
of those opportunities that you've had, what has that helped teach you about yourself?
Yes, totally. And I absolutely agree. And I've turned on that and said, well, here's an opportunity to learn more, an opportunity not to do what I did and to make things better. So I agree totally with you, Angela. I wish I spoke to you.
Yeah, well, if only we knew each other all those years ago. So
Yeah, never too late.
no, that's right. Now I know as you've gone through your career, you've had to navigate a few more issues as well with becoming a parent. And I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that journey as well with what you faced in that space as well with then becoming a parent and, coming back into the workforce and, the different barriers that you face there and we'll say the opportunities that were presented to you at that time. So if you would be comfortable sharing that, that'd be awesome to hear that.
Yes. And that's probably one of the reasons why I'm so keen to be part of the initiative is that I find a lot of female, if they choose to start a family, and I'm sure majority, well, not majority, but there's quite a number of women who want to start a family and they can hit a road in their career. And I feel like it's important to share the stories so that women know there's many of us out there and many of us who have walked that road and not to be fearful that their career has to stop because of starting a family. And if there are milestones that they can't achieve, there are other opportunities and ways. So for me, my journey was I did want to start a family. I was quite hesitant because I had just been promoted as associate and I didn't see that coming. I was just so busy, head down, focused on working hard, delivering projects, and it I was promoted, so I was quite honoured. I almost turned it down, thinking because I wanted to start a family. And
Mm.
bless my father, I remember him, and he said, Janet, when opportunity knocks on your door, don't close the door on it. Even if you're not sure, even though you're scared, have a go. There's nothing to lose. And so I took his advice and I said yes. And yeah, and the rest is history. But I believe within 2 years after that, I we started a family, and I was thinking, what is that going to happen to my career? At that time, I didn't have any female role models, or nor did I know any female in industry, or my friends either, who actually had children and worked part time. We all didn't know any better. We all had careers, and we all just went back to work, all of us. So we thought that was the norm. And then when my daughter was free, I felt something within me that was missing. I felt I've missed the first 3 years of her childhood, and that really, really didn't sit well with me. And I was
Mm.
doing very long hours because prior to having a family, we worked long hours and it didn't
Yeah.
matter because we're so dedicated to our work and we wouldn't know any better. So when a child comes along, you can't do those long hours. They really need you. And so I said, I really, really miss this and it was really eating me. So I plucked up the courage, which I thought, my goodness, looking back now, I can't believe I had the concept, but I'm so glad I did. I went up to my director and said, I really want to work part-time because I'm missing out on my daughter's childhood upbringing. I want to be part of her childhood and there were no other female in the company at that time in our office from what I can remember. And no one works part-time. So I thought, well, no one in the technical team, that is. At that time, we went through a recession and there were the female contometrists, which not many people know, they do all the number crunching. They're in the admin section and they were asked to do part-time purely because of recession. And so I asked, and they said yes. And I was so,
Wow.
so happy. It was like incredible. I didn't expect to know. Bless my director. He seemed very traditional. They're all very traditional. Our profession is very traditional, comes from England. And so none of their, I don't believe any of their partners work. They all were stay-at-home parents. So
Mm.
for him to actually recognize that it's important for me to be with my daughter, I was very grateful. So I worked part-time, and I can't remember, I think I worked 4 days a week at the time. And I had one day off every week. And so when you're working part-time as a mother, we're the most productive. We have things we need to deliver. We work so hard to just earn that one day. And that one day I spent all day with my daughter, and I'm so glad I did it. And I continue doing part-time ever since. I don't know how my company feels about that, but they've been very, very supportive. And at the time, I think I was told, if you want to be promoted, you would have to come back full time. And I don't hold any grudges again then. I totally understand that. And I was said, thank you. I'm comfortable in the current situation I am. And next we know, as they say, you can never plan for anything. We then had another two more children
Oh, wow.
many years later. So I felt my career had been put on a hold for many, many years. And do I regret it? Probably not, because I think family, I've chosen to have a family and they come first. So not to say I don't put 100% in my work, but I do, but they take priority in terms of my decisions that I make for my career. But how the world works is amazing. I think 2 years ago, I then got promoted, and I'm so grateful to the company in the foresight and the insight they had to consider that female. We have a lot to contribute into the company,
Mm.
and what I can add. And so I'm so grateful to given that opportunity. So sometimes, like you said, when you feel there are roadblocks in anything or in your career, making choices that might cause roadblocks, sometimes opportunities happen.
Mm.
And this is what's happened to me, and I'm so grateful.
And I love that. And thank you for sharing your story. And what I'd love to hear more is about, like, you had one child and then, your child got to three, and then it's like, oh, I really need to spend more time with my child. And then you had another two, but you're still working 4 days a week. And then you've got three children. So how did you actually manage working and parenting with three small children as well? Because they're two full-time jobs in themselves.
Very much so. I think, as they say, you need a village to raise a child. You really need a village to support women with families. Just companies need to support families. And some people would say it's not our responsibility, but if they're really serious about helping staff, because if staff is their biggest asset, they're making sure their staff are well looked after. Just being a little bit more flexible. We're not asking for big remuneration or anything of that, but just being flexible, staff will give back much more. And
Mm,
I think, of course, I have, people helping me at home, and my husband's have to work around my schedule, and you have to be very organized. He's also in industry.
mm.
So, our deadlines and hours are crazy, but we
Yeah.
work around each other. So we have people who support us. You really need family to support. I don't have my parents helping, but I do have friends and I do have my sister. So everyone needs that support, or even daycare. We relied on daycare when they were both very young. So we need all that. And the government, needs to help and understand the struggles families go through. My company is so incredibly flexible. They understand if I need to leave at 4 o'clock because I have to attend to my kids' activities or pick them up. And they know that I will work earlier that morning to make up for the hour.
Mm,
Um, I think the flexibility and the trust is so important in any company
mm.
to allow families to, thrive, and staff to thrive with families.
Absolutely, because it is, everyone comes with different needs and everyone has
Yeah.
different requirements. And like you touched on, you don't have necessarily a big family network to support you with this as well. I mean, you do have a support network, but not everyone has that as well. And
Mm,
there is a lot involved, not just with one child, but let alone three children, because especially when they go to school and then there's outside school activities and, they might get sick or just,
mm,
parent-teacher interviews, all the different life things that happen. And
mm,
your company is obviously very progressive in that space, and being able to give you that 4 days, and you being the first female and then asking for a part-time role as well is awesome, and that's a credit to them to being able to recognize that. But what
mm,
would you like to see for companies, and you've probably touched on it a little bit, but for companies to be able to recognize in this space, particularly given the way that the industry is at the moment, where there is a huge focus to attract more women into the industry, but it's understanding that when women come into the industry, there's all of these things to take into consideration as well.
mm. And I think you're so right. Their company still needs to do a lot. I feel it's not just for female. I think it's also for families. I try not to focus more on saying what companies need to do to help female because I think there are men also who may want to take time off as well with
Correct.
families.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want companies to think, oh gosh, we've got to cater for females. We've got to. It's not. I think female makes such a huge proportion of the workforce now. We need to be very inclusive of what the needs are of everyone and support them because if companies don't support the male counterpart, they
Mm.
can't help women in the industry
No.
because us female need our partners to also come home on time to help
Yeah.
because our work as parents don't stop at 5 o'clock. We
No.
start at 9. It's
No.
24/7, as you know, Angela.
Correct. Yes.
So it's so important. Companies need to realize, oh no, we've now got to do initiative for women. No, it is every staff because if half the staff have families, they need to help support the male as much as the
Mm.
female.
Mm.
So I think that's the first thing that must get over. It's not about females, it's about families. I can't speak to those who don't have families, but from my experience, that's what I'm focused on, and I'm so keen to help bring that awareness to companies. So if you allow staff to be able to work flexible, and I know there's a lot of debate because about working from home and a lot of people are not keen about people working from home, but we're not asking for drastic measures. We're drastic just a few minor tweaks where you get a bit more understanding and accommodating.
Mm.
It goes a very, very long way. Just having my husband to help me come home on time to pick up the children at
Mm.
say 5:30, it helps me immensely. The
Mm.
load of the logistics, it just helps. And because I don't know people from around the world, but in Sydney, we're not everywhere you need to generally drive.
Yeah.
So traffic and everything, it could eat
Yeah.
up an hour easily. And that hour is huge because you could be helping a child with their homework at night, you could be cooking dinner. There's just all those domestics that needs to be attended. And people don't see that. Plus the mental load we carry in our head that night. Tomorrow I've got an 8 a.m. executive meeting, or I've got this, have I prepared the paper? And then your son saying, Mum, how do I do 10 times 10? So the load that we have in our head, every little bit really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. And there's a word that you touched on there that I think is really key to this, which is the inclusivity.
Mm.
What does that look like for you?
Oh gosh, that is such a word that means a lot.
Mm.
Being a female of color, in an industry that's very male dominated, inclusive means everything to be seen, to be heard, to be invited, to be part of every conversation. Not every, but just to be part of the conversation, and to be considered and not overlooked is so important. Obviously, I started off as a minority in the industry or even in my company. And for the company to recognize me and recognize my contributions, um, and not because I'm hopefully not, but not as a female, not as a woman of color, but me as a person of what
Mm.
I can contribute and add value to is amazing. It's amazing.
Mm.
Sometimes I don't like the word inclusivity because I feel like people have to do it as a token or a tick the box because, oh, we need to tick the inclusivity box. Right, let's go find someone who is a minority. And I don't like that, but I want
Mm.
it to be something like it shouldn't be something that they need to think about. It should be just automatic, like, right, who's best suited to this particular role or this job? oh, Janet or Mark or Karen, but it's not sort of like, oh, let's pick someone that's a female, let's pick someone.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is very important.
And that's something that unfortunately is happening a bit these days, where it is like a tick box
Mm,
process.
mm,
What do you think could be done to sort of circumnavigate that, to make it so it is done on a equity
merit.
basis and a merit
Mm.
basis rather than we're just putting someone in so we can actually tick that box and say, yes, we've got that.
I think companies need to set the criteria and the framework, the capability framework, so that it's clear and there is no biased decision made as a result of because of a gender, a race, or any particular categories like that. So there needs to be a clear, transparent framework that says, here are the criteria for a person to be part of this role or this promotion. Um, and therefore, not only does it provide fairness and authenticity to others, but to the person who's also been selected,
Mm.
because they don't want to feel as if they're just there to tick a box.
Yeah.
They want to feel like I have definitely earned it and I'm
Mm.
worthy of being in that role or
Mm.
worthy of that promotion. Yeah,
Mm. Yeah.
goes both ways.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that's really key because otherwise the person isn't feeling fulfilled, I guess you can say that, you've actually picked me because I've got the skills. You're picking me so you can actually meet a criteria.
Yes. And it's not sustainable as well, Angela,
No,
because you
no.
can see that some people who are picked, I'm telling you, right, have a go. If you get an opportunity, please do have a go and say yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
whether it's sustainable is another question. And as your criteria say, you want to view women who have been in industry over 25 years because you have to be able to stay in the industry for this long.
Correct.
And therefore, those criteria has to be realistic and achievable at the same time because
Mm.
then women get into a role and they've been set to fail. And that's how you lose. You lose talent in the industry.
Mm.
We have to support them and give them the right environment and the right tools and the right support to succeed and stay within the industry.
So for you, with all your experience of being in the industry, what does the right support and the right tools look like?
Mentoring, you need real, sincere, quality mentoring. Um, People who believe in you, people
Mm.
who would champion for you, people who actually believe having diversity is so important in the success of a company,
Mm.
and not just purely you sitting there just to tick the box. And also being flexible, understanding the needs of your staff, not saying you go way out of your way to give them all the lenient um, accommodations, but just understand, right, on this particular day, they need to leave at 4 o'clock. Very, very simple things, being flexible and
Mm.
understanding and supporting them in terms of whether it's their developmental, professional development, whether it's for mentoring them, giving them advice. I think those are very important for anyone's career and
Mm.
having that.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And they're so valuable because it's what can make or break someone as well. So
Totally, absolutely, yes.
now with you, you've touched on that you've had two promotions since you've been with this company. Is it just two or has there been more?
I think just two at the moment, yes.
Just two? Okay,
um,
great. So when
um,
you got those promotions, and particularly like you had one just before you had your first child, and then you had one, all those years later, how did that actually make you feel? Especially when you're sort of head down and you're very dedicated and you're just doing your work, and then you get a promotion and it's unexpected, as you said, like you weren't expecting it, and then it's like, wow, I want to have a family, but like your dad gave you some awesome words of wisdom about, see it as an opportunity. But how did
mm.
that make you feel as a person?
It validated what I'm doing is right. It validated that I do have, um, I can add value, and it really made me realize this industry isn't, there are obviously there are moments where you're thinking, am I in the right industry? Is this hard for families, working mums and families? You always question. And to get that promotion is to realize this is the right decision. And it just crystallizes all the hard work that I've put in over the years,
Mm,
that it's been recognized. And not that I was expecting to be recognized, but very, very rewarding to be recognized and absolutely honored to be promoted
mm.
because I've been entrusted with the role that I've been given, and just want to make sure I do justice.
Yeah, and it's not about the recognition. Like we all go about and do our work not for recognition. It's, to help just, be a good employee really and do a good job as well. So, but to be able to get that and go, oh, okay, this is worth it. Like my skills are actually valued and appreciated and the company recognizes that as well. So with where you are now, you're leading a team of people with what you're doing at the moment in your current role.
Yes,
So with your team of people, like what's important for you with creating a cohesive team?
I think communication is very, very important,
Mm,
and only my team would know, but I'm not sure if I am good at that, but I am trying my very best to communicate. I think, and I'm always learning, always, always learning. I would often go up and ask, is there anything that you believe that we're better at communicating with you, or is there anything you believe that we could do better? After this project's been delivered, what was some lessons learned? What could we have done better? So I think communication is so important and checking in, but not to the point where you're micromanaging. I think checking in
mm,
because you just sincerely want to make sure they might be having an awful weekend. They might have had family issues of the weekend
mm,
that's really affected them, that can affect, how they're going through the week with their work. So just want to make sure they're in a good headspace to begin with. And
mm,
if they're having troubles at home for whatever reason, just to be that much more understanding and realizing it's okay. If you're sick, they would call in and sometimes say, look, I'm really sick, but I'll get this report done. Just being able to say, it's okay, take the day off. We'll handle it from our end. Just
mm,
brief us where you're at. I think that is so important to give them that space that they need. Um, and I think keeping the team together and making sure everyone understands what their role is,
mm,
what the task is at hand, and more importantly, trying to remind them the end goal is to be able to deliver this project successfully. The
mm.
feeling you get when it's all done and the client is happy and appreciative and being part of this big team to
Yeah,
deliver an amazing project, that feeling, I think that's important because sometimes people work and they just focus down and they forget the big picture. Sometimes it's important to remind them the big picture.
yeah.
And the big picture is always important because you have a goal.
Correct, correct. And I
Yeah.
love what you've touched on there because it really is touching on the human side of it, that
Mm.
you're actually dealing with people. Yes, you've got
Yes.
a project and yes, you've got a goal and all of that, but along that journey, you're dealing with humans and you need to have that human element and care about the humans who you're dealing with as
Mm.
well.
Yeah,
Because you're leading them, you've got a duty of care to them as well. So
exactly. I've been
now,
in that position. That's why.
yeah, well, you understand it. So then if we flipped it and if we go, okay, how would you like your team to think of you as a leader? What type of person would you like them to look up to you as?
Oh, I'm really working towards this and I hope I will get there. Um, is for them to think of me that I'm the person that they can approach, that they can approach me if they have work struggles and they would come to me if they needed career advice because I've made mistakes and learned from those and made opportunities out of them and turned them into things better, to help them realize they're not stuck, to help them realize it's okay. There are moments where you'll have lows and you'll have highs and how you get out of that. So I'd love them to come to me for that. In terms of just giving them that extra support that you can do it, believe
Yeah,
in yourself. So I would love that. And I'd love, most importantly, is to be able to see them shine. The whole point that is most satisfying. And when you read people say it's so much more satisfying to give back and seeing
It is.
others thrive. So I've learned that over the years as I'm managing teams. It's so rewarding when I see my staff or my fellow colleagues get promoted or win work, deliver projects on time successfully and see them happy. It is so satisfying to see them grow. And I think
Yeah.
it's just like seeing your own child grow.
Yes.
You've spent so much time with them, you've built this relationship with them, and you just want to see them succeed. I think that I would love to just help them get to where they should be and achieve their potential.
I love that. I love that. And that, to me, that's just like the pinnacle of leadership right there is to actually that you just want to see the people who you're leading, you want to see them thrive and you want to see them grow and do well. Like that's what it should be about. So,
And hopefully I can achieve that, but I'm a work in progress.
well, we're all works in progress, really, at the end of the day, aren't we? So, yeah, no.
Yes, yes,
But the thing is that you've got that awareness of it, and you can't implement something unless you've got an awareness of what it is you want to implement. So that makes a
exactly.
huge difference. So now with that, and thank you for sharing that, that's beautiful. With that, with the industry looking forward, what would you like to see for the industry looking forward?
Oh, I think industry looking forward. I would like the industry to not think of women being in industry as an afterthought. And I don't think we're that bad. We have come a very, very long way. When I now go to meetings, design meetings or client meeting, I see more women. And to me, that is a real testament to how far we've come. But there's still a lot of work. And I think I haven't touched on a lot of other things that my fellow female industry contacts I have that I hear and experience a lot of more serious topic in terms of sexual harassment, bullying, and it really saddens me when I hear those stories
Mm,
that I've been very fortunate. I don't believe I have ever come across, and I've been very grateful. But to hear them is, quite upsetting because we've come this far, and for so many women now being more in the industry for over 20 years, that there's still this. And I guess we're not, as industry, immune. We're not the only industry. I believe there are industries who are still going through, issues of sexual harassment and bullying.
mm,
And I would love not just our industry, but the whole corporate world to just realize that there's more that needs to be done. It's
mm,
about educating people professionally in the profession to realize what's not acceptable
mm,
and for management to call it out and for management to not sweep it under the carpet
mm,
because you can't touch that guy or that executive because they bring in a lot of work. I think women need to be protected. I often don't like to isolate women and because then people will say, oh, we've always have to care about. But no, it's not just that. Men get bullied as well, you
mm,
know. And so it is a overarching corporate policy, not just a policy on paper, but actions that actually speak for themselves. It
mm,
has to come from management. So important that management has to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, set the example because it's not right that can't speak for those who don't give 100% of work for those who actually dedicate and commit themselves 100% of work and give to the company and for the company to not take care of them, but the simplest thing of management not turning a blind eye and taking action, calling out unacceptable behaviors is so important.
mm,
And I think that's probably one of the reasons why women don't stay in our industry because they cannot deal with the bullying anymore. Why
mm,
would they stay in a profession where they get bullied? Sure, other professions might, but perhaps they think this is far more than others or get sexually harassed.
mm,
So I think it's so important. If my daughters want to ever be in the industry and if it's still the way, if it hasn't improved, I'll be quite hesitant because it's not right. But having said that, it has improved immensely,
mm,
and a lot of organizations for female are doing a lot of work, but I think there's more that can be done, and not just in industry, but across all corporate sectors.
Absolutely, I agree. And like when you look at the stats, they're really quite alarming, to be honest, with
Mm,
how many women experience the bullying and the harassment and the gender inequity and the discrimination and all the different things that happen in the industry. And it is, when you're already a minority of a very male dominated industry, and the industry itself is a very intense industry because you're on the clock, and there's so much pressure, deadlines, there's lots of personalities, there's always lots of stakeholders involved, and then you add to the mix of that some very
mm,
unhealthy toxic behaviors. It's quite damaging and harmful for an individual as well.
mm. Agree.
Yeah. So, in closing, Janet, what I'd love to hear, and thank you for sharing that, what I'd love to hear, if you had someone standing in front of you, and it's like, if for me, I always go, if you've got the opportunity that you could pass on some words of wisdom where it's like, if I had someone standing in front of me and I could tell them something like this is what I would tell them, and some words of wisdom or a comment or something like that that you could pass on, which is, I'll call it Janet's words of wisdom for someone, and whether it's a woman in the industry or just someone about, this industry and things that, you could pass on to help them that could potentially change their trajectory, what would those beautiful words of wisdom be?
Oh, there's a few. I'm trying to make it concise. Probably from my journey, and it's an old one anyway. Grab every opportunity that comes the door. Grab it. Never say no.
Love it.
And always, always ask. So ask. If you don't ask, you will never know. And believe in yourself. Find your own community that supports you. Find a mentor, a coach that supports you and believes in you. But most importantly, never give up and believe in yourself.
I love that. That's beautiful. And it's so true because, I mean, it applies to everyday life as well, but,
Mm,
certainly in this industry as well. Absolutely.
mm.
So thank you so much for joining us all the way from Paris. We really appreciate it, and appreciate you giving us your time to have such a valuable conversation as well. So, and your words of wisdom that you've shared.
Thank you, Angela. It's been an absolute pleasure and a real honor. I hope your initiative is going to be an amazing success to help women in the industry, no matter at the beginning, the middle. It's so important along the whole journey that
Mm,
this will help them when they need to.
absolutely. Well, that's the intent. Let's see how we go. So, but appreciate you being a part of it and helping share your story as well. So it's definitely invaluable. So thank you so much, Janet.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode today. I hope this conversation gave you something that you can take with you, whether it be a little bit of insight, inspiration, or maybe just a reminder that you're not alone. If it resonated with you, please share because we're better when we help build each other up. And remember that your experience, your story, and your journey, it all matters more than you know. Until next time, stay kind, stay connected, and never forget you are epic.